Yeah. Well, we're waiting on Slowpoke. She's not here yet.
You text her?
Yeah, I text her. She's something else. I text her to see when she's ready. We've got a minute 44 seconds.
Okay, SMU.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I like this one.
Oh, okay.
Been around a little bit.
Yeah, you been around a little bit. Yeah, you been around a little bit. Been knowing him since he was a little boy.
Really?
Yeah.
Little fat, chubby little boy.
So that victory over Notre Dame, that's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Man, we used to call Tony Super back then, though.
Oh, Lord, I don't even want to know how he got that name.
It's still super, too. Yes. It is still super. We're on the air right now, but I'm just waiting on our countdown.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I'm just catching y'all with a little backstage action.
Okay.
Yeah, we're just chilling. We've got 56 seconds. We'll be ready to go really live.
Okay.
We're just getting our audience here. Make sure everybody's here with us so we can start our podcasting for real.
How did you like Detroit?
Love you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. In Detroit, if it was.
Hey, Jerry, you still breaking up. Something is not right. I mean, I get you somewhere in the area in your home. It's not coming across right. But let's see.
Yeah.
You're still breaking up. Yeah, it sure is.
It sounds like when I talk and the other speakers talk too.
Yeah, you're still breaking
Hello?
up. Okay.
Turn my mic all the way up.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Hello everyone, thanks for checking this out.
If you're looking for the best show to get your mind refreshed and keep yourself updated about
Educations, health, local politics and many more, then you're at the right place. Welcome to Knowledge is Power Podcast.
The show that specializes on educating Southeast Texas African Americans communities
with profitable information on health, education, local politics, business and personal finances and many more life coping skills.
You can join us and start streaming our episodes to get to discover more about the community and new things about yourself.
Meet our outstanding host, Tony Renfro.
And our co-host Francis Larkin and LaDonna Sherwood.
As we go through different overwhelming topics, interviewing new guests every Tuesdays and Sundays at 8 p.m.
Central Standard Time.
You can start streaming with us on different platforms like Facebook,
at Knowledge is Power Podcast Live,
YouTube,
at Knowledge is Power Podcast Live,
Apple Podcast,
at Knowledge is Power Podcast Live.
How do you catch up with our live streams? It's more than easy.
Now, open your mobile device and go to YouTube now. Click on the search button and write on the search bar, Knowledge is Power Podcast Live. Click on the subscribe button and also turn on notifications to receive a pop-up message whenever we start a program.
You can also do that on Facebook. Write on the search bar Knowledge is Power Podcast Live and then you can click on the like button.
The best time to join is now. Knowledge is Power Podcast
Is the best for you. Is the best for you.
Welcome to Knowledge is Power Podcast.
Here we are going specialize on educating Southeast Texas African Americans communities with viable information on
Health,
education,
local politics,
business and personal finances,
Leadership coaching, and many more. Learning as a joint experience and through our series of interviews.
We can all learn more and achieve even greater things.
You are now tuned into this week's episode of our podcast.
Today,
we are going to interview some of the greatest and most influential minds as our guest.
Meet our host Tony Renfro
and our co-hosts
LaDonna Sherwood and Francis Larkin.
Join us every Tuesdays and Sundays as we interview new guests on another
mind-blowing topics.
Knowledge is Power Podcast
Is the best for you.
go. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Knowledge is Power. Let me bring out our guest for tonight. It's going to be my co-host, Miss LaDonna. No, she's not here. Francis.
Hey,
Larkin.
what's going on?
Hey, wondering what's
Hello,
going on here.
everyone.
And I have our special guest tonight. It's going to be Jerry Ball Jr. From Beaumont, Texas, and born and raised in Beaumont, Texas, ex-NFL and Texas High School Hall of Famer. We don't hear that around here that too much. Hall of Famer from Texas High School Football Hall of Famer. Jerry, we'll be right back with you, Jerry. We're going to go to our little spiel that we do every week, and we've got a big tournament going on, and we need to tell everybody about it.
Tony? Well, it looks like the NAACP is having a Beaumont Youth Council golf tournament scheduled for October the 9th, 2021 at Bayou Den. I'm super proud of the NAACP, of course, for hosting this event. I think it's phenomenal for any organization to support the youth and just support the community, basically through scholarship or through fundraising. So I think that's going to be a great opportunity, and everyone should pre-register. And it looks like registration ends, or it's already ended on September the 20th. So contact NAACP for more information. You can register through email at bmtnaacp@hotmail.com. Tony, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I guess I missed everything. I'm
That's
sorry.
okay. You
All
have
right.
any?
Yeah, I do. I have one more, and I want you to go over with me, and that would be the Diabetes Awareness Month.
All right. So we are gearing up. Our committee is super excited as usual for Diabetes Awareness Month. It's the Faith and Strength to Endure Community Awareness Walk, and it's scheduled for Saturday, November the 13th, 2021 at 9 a.m. through noon at Rogers Park. Please look for more information and more details as we gear up for this terrific event. And for more information, you can email Miss Tamika Clark at myclark1@gmail.com.
All right, and one more. That's Commissioner Everett Bo Alford, Jefferson County Precinct number 4.
Absolutely.
They have their drive-through COVID-19 test and vaccination site on Saturday, October the 2nd at the Ray Smith Senior Science Medical Technology Middle School. Boy, that's a long name. In the parking lot at 4415 Concord Drive, was going to be free food to give away. COVID-19 vaccine, no registration required for vaccine. COVID-19 testings, registration required testing. Please call 409-926-9529 to register. Also, they're going to have those there for blood drive, blood pressure, and blood sugar checks, and voters registration and flu shots. So please have your ID and your insurance card available. A limited number of vouchers will be available for people who do not have insurance.
Oh, wow. That's terrific.
And now I will bring on our guests tonight.
All right. I'm excited.
Big number 93, the Icebox, Jerry Ball. Hello, Jerry. Come on. Hey, all right. Let's go. Let's get bringing Jerry on here. I'm going to clear this out. There we go. All right. Hello, Jerry.
Hey.
Welcome, Jerry. Can you hear us, Jerry?
I think you got my mic on.
Oh, your mic is on, cuz. We there. Knowledge is Power Podcast Live. We've got to be talking to our good friend, Jerry Ball Jr. He's joining us tonight as we talk about a topic of things. And it is something Frances is my co-host, and she's from the East Texas area. And she said, well, who is this guy that we having on the show? And I said, you mean you don't know Jerry, the big box? She said,
I do now.
I said, let me sing your bio. Let me sing a bio to you. Now you know, huh?
It was so interesting I couldn't get started.
All right, Jerry. We thank you, Jerry, for joining us when we have so many guests on. And I'm experiencing so much in what I'm saying in my podcast. I tried to add music. I tried to do the production in the background. And old head like me, we can't do that no more, cuz. We can't do it like we used to do it. So I will do the best I can. Ladies and gentlemen, Jerry Ball Jr. Hello, Jerry. And you still on mic. Hold
He's
on.
muted.
You still muted. You're muted.
I'm telling you.
I'm not muting you. You muting yourself.
Right.
All right, let's try
Get
this.
it together, Tony.
Let's try that. I'm not muting him. He's muting himself. There you go. Now you're going out again. Let's do this, Jerry. You're still muted now. Let's go do this. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to eliminate some of this stuff here and see if this will work. Let's see here. No, it won't work. All right, now you're back on. Now you're checked out again. But we'll be right back with Jerry, okay, guys? He's having a little technical difficulty with his computer on his end, so he'll be right back with us in a second. I don't know what's wrong with his equipment, so maybe we can do it this way. I'm going to change it up, come back with it, and let's see here. Well, I'll tell you what. While we're doing this, Francis, we're waiting on Jerry to come back.
Yeah.
Kind of brushes over his bio.
Oh, his bio. I am fascinated by his bio. He has a very extensive bio. I mean, filled with philanthropic opportunities. He's played in the NFL for a number of seasons. I am thoroughly impressed because I am a somewhat of a football buff. Don't ask me about the stats, okay? Ask me about the players, not their stats. But I'm just pretty much blown away to see that that Beaumont, especially Westbrook, has such a phenomenal no shot. It wasn't a shot.
Yes, it was.
Has such an outstanding person. So it's my honor and a pleasure to meet you tonight, sir.
I appreciate the hospitality. Prior to getting on there, I would tell you guys that she threw a couple of shots at Beaumont and that she's from Jasper. I had to let her know that we never lost Jasper Tech.
It came pretty close, though. I'm quite sure it was before my time, but I'm sure
we wasn't playing horseshoes.
It got pretty heated out there. Tony? Tony? We can barely hear you.
Really? Can you hear me now?
You're back.
I'm back.
Yeah.
Okay. What's wrong? What's going on here? Let me find out what's going on here with my equipment here. My equipment is kind of. Wait a minute. Okay, you got to be able to hear me by now.
I can hear you.
Yeah. All right, guys. Let's talk with Jerry tonight, and we're gonna talk about a little bit of your career highlights and notable recognitions, and just tell us a little bit about that, Jerry, because we've got a lot to cover tonight. So let's get it moving, okay? So it's you, Jerry.
Well, it's always great to deal with any aspect of home. And being a guy from Beaumont and the Golden Triangle, we definitely, walk around with pride of Texas, Southeast Texas in front of us. And I tell you, just having an opportunity to play ball there in that area and really learn the foundation is one of the best places in the world. I love the area, I love the people, and as it relates to just how it's helped me move forward, the best things ever I learned in life came from down there, and that's the good and the bad. So we're definitely proud to be from Southeast Texas and Beaumont and representing the home folks. Pale Archer specific.
All right.
Silver City.
All right. Well, tell us a little bit about your family. Give us an update on your family, Jerry.
Well, actually, I have 3 adult daughters and actually have 3 grandkids. It takes up a large part of my time now, spending time with them. I remember growing up and before I got married, I wanted to, in my mind, how were my kids. Then once my kids got grown and to a certain level, I was like, Lord, let me see my grandkids. And he's blessed me to do that. And I'm very thankful. But so it's a real good place in my life right now, you know, just having them and being around. Got 2 grandsons and 1 granddaughter, Heidi, Elijah, and River.
What was the last name? What was the last one?
River.
River, okay.
Now, is that a nickname or is that his name?
No, that is his name.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
His name is River.
Hey,
you know,
Jerry, you grew up in the old school. You were the last part of the old school football. Okay, that was it was in the 60s. It was the late 60s. It was the early 70s and the late 70s. And you came out in 83, 82, and you was a defensive lineman and fullback. And you was a fullback rushing for over 100 yards, 1,000 yards.
I was gonna say 1,000.
Yeah, for the 1982 5A state championship at Westbrook. That's when Hebert and Westbrook merged that year, that first year of that. So I'm going somewhere with this. You know, you're the last of the good old days of football. As football has changed, the kids have changed, school, everything has changed. When we was going through in school and going to college, playing football, playing sports, we wasn't paid. We didn't have sponsorship. We didn't have So I want you to talk to the parents of those that is watching and hoping to be watching and listening. What they can look at now, because things have changed. It's not the same old football that we're accustomed to.
Different world, man. I tell you, Tony, I definitely appreciate you living that to me, because I think it is very critical in our community, specifically because we got so many talented players, but throughout the country with the youth. But before I get into it, I do want to say one thing that I'm proud of. You know, I went to Hebert High School, but also I scored the last touchdown in Hebert High School history.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that's big for me, you know, because I wanted to play for Hebert all my life, growing up as a kid, and to score the last touchdown in the school history. That's something that I carry just as proud as anything else. But going to the kids, you know, during the time when we came through, of course, you guys know I went to SMU and they had the death penalty. And, you know, a lot of it had to do with what during the time was considered illegal payments. And really, when you start looking at sports as you look in the modern day, you have to recognize that game has changed, but the business of sports has changed.
Absolutely.
You know, a lot of times, you know, people talk about the competitive spirit and stuff, but then that's what's called the competitive edge. And part of that competitive edge is making sure that your player or your team has resources and have access to the best of the best. And I think one of the things that, you know, it does in being able to help these kids get some remuneration, but it also gives them an opportunity to kind of have a good base and a good platform. When I was in college, as an example, you know, I was married in my junior year and I had a kid. But because I was on scholarship, I couldn't go get a job. But then they'll tell an athlete, hey, look, you know, you get the same benefit of the other student. Well, that's not true, because the other student can be married and he can go get a job. If he has a kid, the kid still needs to eat. You know, so that was one of the things that was very antiquated in NCAA's approach, because they wasn't really taking the human dynamic into how they were making decisions. Now, but getting more toward to the real specific issues, if I'm talking to parents and I'm talking to the kids, one of the key things that you have to do is understand intellectual property. Intellectual property is this very thing that you guys call my brand, you know, your name, what you associate yourself with. But the intellectual property is actually the things that, like when you see Jordan brand, he owns Jordan brand, he owns that name, and then he's porting that brand and that name, which is an intellectual property, with Nike, and they have a partnership. Well, that gives the players now the very same latitude to do that at a local level, where you might have a guy that has a restaurant and he wants to get it, notarized. Well, he wants to get it noticed, let's say at the football game. He might have a food truck. So at the football game, he might advertise with the kid, and then the truck shows up at the game. Is another way of creating, I guess you could say, business. But the kid has to be careful, because when you're associating your names, you don't know if that person has done anything illegal. You don't know if the quality controls on the food. So if somebody gets sick, then it starts creating these, what we call risk management issues.
Right.
So on the front end of just understanding intellectual property and trademarks and copyrights and all that, they need to get online and just start Googling that, especially if they have a kid that's in the 8th grade that's getting noticed. Because right now colleges are noticing these kids in the 8th grade, and the reason why is because they have these camps. And these camps, they're taking the data and they're tracking the kid along the way, tracking his grade, tracking his times and all that. And eventually, a college coach will get with that guy, and that guy share that information with him. But it's his intellectual property that is going to be the first chance for them to do some type of business. And the parents have to be tight, and the kid can't just take money from anyone. And I can give you my own stories on that a little later, which I think is going to be, critical.
So tell me a little bit about like the difference in the physical fitness. Now, just by me looking at, football back when versus football players now, it seems like that, they focus a lot more on physical fitness. Can you expand a little bit on that, especially because, child, I love the combine. That's like one of my favorite parts of the season.
Do this guy look like he's fit?
Well,
he looked pretty fit. Don't worry about him. Don't worry about him.
Now, out of all of the pictures, but guess what, Tony? On that picture, I'm the #1 player in the world, and I'm whooping 2 people's ass at a time. So you can talk all that you want. It wasn't no doughboy.
Hey, from what I read, it take like 2 to 3 people to take you down, brother.
Hey, man, you that's one thing. Hey, man, that's one thing you don't never ever have to tell nobody else that, because those that know, they know.
Just hand him your resume, okay?
You was plugging up
No, that's okay with Super. That's all right. I'm gonna put my hands on him when I see him.
Yeah, I could let that go by. I threw a little shade that time. All right.
He's shady.
Hey, look here, Super. Now, boy, you know that ain't the picture I sent you.
No. He wanted me to post
That's
that.
All right. We see all the photos in the back, okay?
Yeah.
It's all good.
So tell me the difference. Is there a difference in the workout? Is there a difference in like the nutrition? Is it more tailored? Is it? So expound on that a little, because I've always wondered.
Well, I tell you, the game itself has changed in technology, nutrition, and the way that players are actually monitored through a year. During our time, we had an off season for real, whereas when the season was over, we go home and you might lay down a good month before you start working out again. Now these guys work out year round. And in doing that, it actually allows the kids to grow different. It allows them, in a nutritional standpoint, definitely to be a lot leaner than we were. Mm-hmm. Then there's some things. During the era when I came in, steroids was an issue, right? So a lot of the guys that were real big guys and stuff, and I'm not gonna say a lot, I'll say some, definitely use steroids. Whereas now guys are more natural with supplements and the things, and steroids is banned. So now you have a what I would consider a more holistic type athlete, where he into a look. You take like the gemstones stuff
Yeah.
that we wear those now because it helps the lines and stuff, and it actually has those healing properties. Guys have become educated in that, and then as it relates to nutrition, we would have nutritionists that would come in and speak, but now it's the game is such where guys can have that individual nutrition. Now, one of the things that I would tell you that was very different than when I played, on our training table is one thing, but during the year we would have lunch that would be brought in, and it would be catered. It might be Italian one time, it might be Chinese another, it might be soul food, and it was just bringing in the local business and stuff. Now, when I was at the Lions facility, they have their own cafeteria, their own nutritionist. They have a food court set up, and it's set up just like I would say a restaurant, like kind of buffet style. What is it called? Golden Corral. Kind of how they have their veggies and stuff set up. But what they do is they put a color code on each item, and based on your meal plan, if you get a green code, you can only eat the stuff that have green.
Stop it.
Yeah, they have real specific like that. And then like in the juice bars and stuff, they have all these recipes, and they have the ginger, turmeric, everything. I took a picture of all of that just so I would have the recipes and stuff, because a lot of it is a part of the recuperating and things like that. So in that respect, yes, it is more advanced. But again, it's also with the wave of how people have become more conscious in their health. Exactly. And not eat as much, preservatives and things like that.
They ain't have pork on there because Tony, that's Tony meal plan.
You rarely see pork. And it maybe bacon, and that bacon bacon on the breakfast thing, but it's gonna be turkey bacon there too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I also see that you have some media projects, YouTube, podcast. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, yes. That's a couple things. One, I'm actually a part of what's Lead Network. It was actually created by some gentlemen that actually created the NFL Network, and what we have are about 32 podcasts with former NFL players as hosts. I actually am the host for the Detroit Lions podcast that comes on Wednesday. In my personal capacity, I'm actually developing my own content.
Awesome.
My kids and family, they've been asking me to do some things for years. I've kind of shied away from just the whole social media thing. I only have up until a couple of weeks ago when I actually signed with this deal, I only had Facebook, LinkedIn. Now I got them all and going to start dropping some content, but it's a lot of stories that I'm going to share.
Awesome.
Some things that I've done over the years and stuff. I've already been actually for the last, I guess you say 6 months, been actually capturing video of some intimate conversations I'm going to have. And mine is going to be a little bit more well-rounded. It's not going to be sports specific. We're going to deal in culture, business, politics,
awesome.
Current events, and, we're going to talk with a lot of people in a lot of intimate ways and stuff. I've got some stuff already in the can. I'm going to do a little fragrance review in it as well. I'm a big fragrance guy. Even though Tony, I'm a big guy, I smell good, brother.
I hear him.
But so in that, that's one of the things that, we're going to be pushing forward definitely in that.
Well, you'll definitely have a lot to talk about. I see that you're a Renaissance man. I continue to go through your bio. It is jam-packed with so many interesting facts. I can barely get through a paragraph. So you're a jack of all trades. So
I don't know.
It's gonna be pretty interesting.
Well, one of the things is that, exposure, has a way of, broadening one's perspective. you know, and some of what I look to do in content and sharing is actually taking some things that are true life lessons and sharing it with those that might not be exposed, especially, you know, some of the things that are rarefied, you know, and it can be from, you know, meeting presidents of countries to actually, you know, doing business with some of the top corporations in the world. Actually, you know, I have a lot of stories and stuff, and I'm gonna tell stories of mistakes that I've made too.
Yeah.
You know, because a lot of times guys that are in our position that, you know, get some notoriety, you know, is good. You know, we can tell the positive, but we got to tell the bad too. If we're not
Absolutely.
doing
It
that,
creates a great
we're not,
balance.
we're not, yeah, and we wouldn't be giving them, you know, the facts of it. You know, I've had
Absolutely.
some experiences there just growing up in Beaumont, you know, and Tony, you're from Jasper, so I know you understand Southeast Texas. But as a kid in Beaumont, Texas, you know, there's some things that, you know, clearly, you know, should be different. And when you leave out of that area and you start, you know, experiencing the world in a different, you know, progressive mindset, and then you start looking at some of the things that are self-inflicted, you know, and it's only self-infliction because they don't know better.
Absolutely.
And then in some cases, you know, it's because they hadn't stretched them, you know. And, you know, I remember back in the day when Mel Farr came and spoke at the Hebert Mass Reunion. And during this time, Mel Farr was actually, you know, he had the largest African-American business in America doing $500 million a year.
Wow.
And I remember that Mel Farr was sharing his perspective of how he lived and how he pursued things mentally and how he was thinking about it. And, you know, and he was talking in third person, but the way that the people heard it, they looked at it as he was being grandiose, he was being narcissistic, he was actually being self-absorbed. But I've heard him make the same speech to other people, and they didn't receive it that because they heard a man that was sharing some inspiration. And I think when it came down to how that was received, I always in my mind as an athlete said, I want to make sure that I'm heard properly. Mm-hmm. And being able to speak to, I guess you would say, some of the things that are critical that can help our own people. Some of the exposure of what he said, I learned as a man, he was telling us the exact thing that we needed to hear. And that there was some self-reliance, there's self-get up, there's a self-check that we have to have within ourselves. And the only reason why I pointed to that particular statement is because it goes toward a mentality of how we receive information. You know, sometimes you take a guy like myself and people will make the characterization and say that I think I'm better than others. It's not that I think I'm better than others. It's that I have an exposure and I have a knowledge base that allows me to make better decisions. So rather than come and deal in some of the foolishness that they hadn't grown beyond, okay, I take a path, you know. But when it comes to things that I've experienced, like, you know, when I was in college and in the pros and our phone being tapped because, you know, people in the community was threatened that I was coming in to create, you know, a rebellion almost. Even around the Durley camp, I had to go over there and sit with people, and they literally telling me that if I wanted to do a camp, I should have came to them. They wanted me to do the camp at Westbrook, and I'm like, we trying to work in our community and make sure our kids can get there. They can walk to LaBar, they can walk to Keeper, they can get on their bikes, but they can't track across over to Westbrook. How are we going to get them? They wasn't going to provide buses. But when we're advocating and making decisions for our community, it's important that we all understand where we're all coming from in the heart, the agenda, and what the objective is. So when I look at being able to just come back, and I've done business in both, you know, some of the things that I'm going to tell in the YouTube aspect of it, I'm going to talk some of my business experience. You know, I had never been sued till I came back to Beaumont. You know, I had $60 million worth of dirt off for 365, and I couldn't get but one African American to buy dirt. One. But then Total came and bought, Recon came and bought, and all the big firms came and bought. And I went into the community. I sent people into the community to tell them, hey, look, here's an opportunity where I'll sell you the dirt. And the dirt had already been tested and graded, and it was the best dirt in Jefferson County. But they run the Rose City. Now, the reason why I make that point is because even in sharing the information, it's really about, when we're talking about helping each other see a brighter day, you got to talk about sustainability and how we get there. So there's, you know, that macro perspective, and then there's the micro. And what I've tried to do in my life is focus on the micro and get out of the macro conversation, because that's where the distraction is, that's where the inconsistencies are, and that's where the things that you really can't control. So.
Right. So will you be going over and reviewing some of that? I see a book here, It's Good and the Bad. So are you highlighting some of those topics within that book? Are you the author of that book?
Yes, I've actually been working with a writer for now 9 months on a book. And when I started disclosing to them just my life, you know, from growing up in Southeast Texas with parents that were business owners, you know, and when I say business owners, like my family, we owned the Hollywood Drive-In, or what they call the Stand, which was right next to American Darling Fab. That's a family business.
You got to tell me where that is, Mr. Ball.
Well, this is over in Silver City off of Hollywood. Silver City.
Yeah.
Across the street from Hollywood Village, baby.
Court number 3.
Yeah. But in that, but also my grandfather, you know, and his sons and brothers all working on the railroad. But we also had a business where we cleaned the railroad cars for Southern Pacific, Georgetown Steel, and Bethlehem. And at 18, that business was given to me. So while I was at college, I had a business that was actually hiring people in our neighborhood, but the business was 36 years old.
Wow.
You know, so just from that perspective, it kind of geared toward the things that I became, I guess you say, more in tune with, which was the entrepreneur business side of life. But playing ball, you know, the story of what happened in high school is going to be in it. The aspects of, you know, honestly, you know, the tapping of our phone, some of the things I went through at SMU, you know, that was connected, whereas we were actually in a investigation that actually had me sitting in Chicago in front of a federal grand jury, and it was dealing with a booking agent that had taken money from the Gambino family, and they had came out and signed all All-Americans. So while I'm down there in Florida on the All-American team, me, Chris Carter, Cornelius Bennett, this is about 11 of us that already signed with this guy. Well, this becomes a real big issue, you know, but that was something that was a lesson, and that was one that I'm going to share with the kids, because this is, you know, guy come in the room flashing the cash and stuff, you know, shit, I'm like, I got a baby I need to take care of, shit, give me that, you know, I signed it. Next thing you know, we're going around the country, and I'm telling you, the FBI and everybody, every phone call, every trip, every concert, when the Budweiser Superfest would come in, man, we'll call and say, hey, give us 40 tickets, and then send a guy to go there and and get the tickets and stuff, and he sell them and give us the money. They had all that. So in that perspective, but I would tell you one of the real lessons, that I learned is that, loyalty can change everything. I'm going to tell you guys a story about loyalty. The weekend I got drafted, it was either on a Friday or Friday. It had to be on a Friday I got drafted, but I ended up being in Detroit on Saturday. I came back from Beaumont on Sunday. And I get back and I get with my friends and Super, the guys I ran with, DC, Gerald, Autumn, you know the guys.
Yeah.
So while they're in a club, back then the club was called Hoochie Coo's, while I'm in Detroit, one of our friends get into a fight. 3 guys on one side and he over there on one side fighting 4 guys. So when I come back, they telling me about it. I'm like, well, who is this? Who is this y'all fighting? Who? And then they tell me who the guys are. These guys were from Lamar, but they were from Houston. So I go pick up everybody. And I'm like, we're going to deal with this. I got them in the car. I mean, I'm telling you, again, this is the good and the bad. It's the stuff most people don't want to tell you, but I'm going to tell it because it's the truth. So I get them, and we find the guys over there, right there by the track at some apartments, those apartments that was near the track. So the girl that had the apartment, as soon as we come in, and I'm like, okay, who are they? Point them out. And all 4 of them in one room. And the girl's like, oh, don't tell my place, and stuff like that. And like, okay, like, y'all come on outside. We're going to deal with this. And I ain't going to lie. I was packing my little piece. And when we shut the door, I turned around, kicked the door. The guy started jumping out the window. I go back to my wife's house, mother-in-law house at the time. And I'm just sitting there like it ain't nothing that happened, and then my wife comes over, she hands me a call, she say, this officer say, if you don't call, they gonna come get you. Now, I just got drafted 36 hours before. All right? So when they talk about kids making mistakes and stuff, I did that dumb stuff too. But I'm telling you about it because it's that type of thing that could change the whole dynamic of everything in my life. Because I want to be loyal, or better yet, I want to make sure the ones that was in there are going to fight. Because it was 4 against 1. So on some young, immature bullshit. Just be honest with you. But that's in the book and things like that. So, I'm going to tell, it's going to be some things that's going to be shocking to people that don't know, but it's going to be the truth. And let me just say this so that, even your audience can understand, I try to live a principled life. I'm not the same guy that I was in my 20s, and it's some real, I got a simple covenant with God that I live to. And, there's a one principle that say that of the wicked is laid up for the righteous and the just. All right. I try to be righteous and just in everything that I do. And because of that, and because the things that I've learned and exposure and stuff, I want to share it, but I also don't want to take the abuse because of someone else's, I'm not going to say shortcomings, but someone else's willingness not to stretch themselves in a way that they get the best out of their life. We all have gifts and talents. And what I try to do is enrich other people's lives. I'm not trying to knock anybody down. I want to build. So when I would come home, just being in Beaumont, it would be so much that I see to do, but I'm one person, and then, Southeast Texas, we got some need.
Is he frozen?
No, I just stopped.
Oh,
You
okay.
see, I was saying, wait a minute. I ain't have done anything. But Jerry, before we move on to another topic here, uh, I also tagged a group, and I'm very concerned about this group. I tag online social media. There's a group called Beaumont for.
You're breaking up, Tony.
We have a group in Beaumont, tag on social media on Facebook called Beaumont 411, and I tagged them because it's mostly BISD, the students of BISD that's listening and watches this show, and I wanted you to tell them what just something that something that to help the parents and that child right now that's coming through school and colleges are recruiting and things they need to know. But in a short 2-minute version of this, could you just forewarn them about something that they need to know?
I would tell you one of the biggest mistakes that I'm hearing from friends of mine that are coaching at college is that kids have gotten into this, how many letters I've gotten, who's contacted them. Listen, because of the transport portal, where a kid can be at a college and go to another college now pretty easy. Colleges now aren't looking for the high school kid to be the first choice. Now they're looking in the transport in the transfer portal to get the kids, and they're going to the junior college more so. So now where you might have had 12, 13 freshmen, now you might have 6 freshmen get scholarships, and those other scholarships are going to a kid from another school or going to someone in the junior college. So what I'm saying to the parents and the kids is this. Once you understand what your kid actually wants to do outside of football, and if he's got multiple offers, look at the school that might offer that in the curriculum. Then the second and most important thing, I think, is going somewhere where you think you can actually play. You know, a lot of times because you might be a 5-star athlete, but you go line up in Alabama, you're actually just one of 100 5-star athletes because all of them are 4 and 5 stars. Right. Now, the 4 and 5-star system, people also got a lot vested in that. Listen, at the end of the day, the kid still has to go out there and perform. And parents, you know, as much and as hard as it is, there's going to come a time where you're going to have to let that kid make that decision because he's going to have to be, or she is going to be the one that has to do the work and walk it out. So just don't sit around waiting, you know, and I'm not saying if you're in a junior, you got to commit, but I'm saying by the time it's getting to the senior's time to commit, he should be committed before it gets there, before that scholarship is actually taken from him.
All right. Derek, let's talk a little bit about nonprofit and the community, our community here in Beaumont, Texas. You and I have had some discussions, and it's very interesting discussion. And Ben, I tell you, you have blown me away by your wisdom. And let me tell you, I watched you grow up, and I was always the super, you know. But man, I tell you, you have impressed me with your wisdom on a lot of other areas in that we can profit in our community.
Well, you know, I would say again, you know, going to the principle, but also going to understanding that we all have gifts and talents. More importantly, how those gifts and talents tie into our purpose. You know, as I was growing, Tony, I used to think, you know, my purpose in life was that I was going to build churches. I mean, literally cathedrals. But as I began to walk and understand the word and really start focusing on where my talents and gifts were, even though I was getting the skill set knowledge to do it, I found that my real gift is to be one that build ministries, but it's really as a transfer agent, you know. And one of the things that when I first started looking at the whole nonprofit piece was when the faith-based initiative came in under George Bush. During that time, I was doing some work with J.C. Watts, and J.C. was one of the people that President Bush had actually brought in to deal with the AIDS impact during that time, and I think it was about $10 billion that they were putting in. So I started getting to understand how GPOs and nonprofits work, and then started looking at it as being a vehicle that I could use to actually go in and help in communities build sustainability. And then looking at the NFL as, even though I was retired, I'm still called on in some capacity when guys have some issues that I might be able to sit in on and bring some knowledge and perspective on. But as they begin to, try to deal with the Colin Kaepernick, and they start dealing with the JC issue, right about that time was when we had really formed up what our purpose was, and it was to really create an equality nonprofit. And the equality nonprofit isn't just based on the African American or brown agenda. It was really about inclusion, being able to understand how to go to corporations and enact and transact with them, whereas they can take some of their money that they have sitting there and redirect it into communities if we bring to them the proper platform, proper structure, the right accounting and things that really matter. So I started going around the NFL talking to other players, but also talking to people in some of the administrative positions on teams and telling them what I wanted to do. And then start talking to some of my NBA buddies and stuff and entertainers. And at the cusp of it is what I'm looking to do is create an incubator nonprofit that actually goes into communities and foster relationships with the local advocacy groups that might already exist in the city. Let's say if we're talking Beaumont, we go to the North End, South End, West End, East End. We find the advocacy groups. We allow them to communicate into us what the needs are. And let me explain why that is critical. When you're a player and you're going into a market that it's not your home. I go to Detroit, I can drive around and see some things, blightedness and some of the things that the people are saying, but we actually don't know what you need in that community. So what I've started doing is telling players and organizations, I said, hey, we got to approach this a little different. I said, how about if we were to go out with a nonprofit, and the nonprofit is supported by corporations and local businesses, and we go out and take the nonprofits that have problems communicating or producing documents or writing grants, and we help bridge. But the way that we bridge them is not to really put them in any type of isolated function, but to put it in a cooperative. In the same way that you would have as a think tank, you take the people in the advocacy group that might want to do after school nutrition in the North End. And then you got another group that might be on the South End that want to do after school. But you might fill out one application for a grant that this one qualifies for, but rather than just fill out one, we fill out all for four. So now we got someone filled it out in the North, South, East, and West, and if two get it, then they share the resources to build these sustainable programs. And then, we started looking at and talking with, some key people that are, I would say leaders in our community. We started looking in areas, you take like technology and coding, one of the things that, we feel can be a very advantageous thing for our kids is to introduce them to coding. Now we can talk STEM, but we need to also show STEM and coding in the same capacity and give our kids some direction, because that's where we have to start really focusing, I guess you say, the next generation. One of the things that we did in creating some of, what we would call our program is we also went to some of the federal agencies to understand where some deficiencies were in certain areas, you know. And it could be from youth at risk, it could be elderly care. And instead of, you know, being a nonprofit that actually focused specifically in one area, we wrote the bylaws so that instead of having to come back and attach it, we would always be able to be active in a community because it's a broad approach and it's not looking for one nonprofit or one individual to carry the load. It becomes a cooperative. And then we start going to the corporations and the banks. One of the things that we don't know in our community and why other nonprofits can launch and all of a sudden, you know, they got $500,000 and $1 million is because those corporations enter into what's called a sponsorship mentor program. And that's where they will come in and bring the accounting and all the best practices to the table, and they're helping you build that infrastructure. And then eventually, after you get to a certain level, they hand you that nonprofit because now they sponsored you to a certain level. So we're going to use some of that strategy. We're also going to go to banks where you have, you know, we put our deposits in. Most people don't know that a bank lends 10 to 1. So if you put in $100, they're going to lend $1,000 off of your $100. So if we go to corporations and we're able to get them to commit to an annual pledge or commitment to this program, if it's $200,000 and we go to the bank and we say, okay, we're putting 200 in your bank, okay, that's $2 million that you're gonna lend. Well, we want you to lend 50% of that back to someone that might be going through our credit enhancement program. It might be a young lady that wants to start a beauty shop, or a young man that might want to do hot shot, you know, and we help bridge those things so that we can create some sustainability, but everyone that comes through makes the same contribution. So that's really kind of what in the context of my philanthropic area and focus is, and that's what I'm attempting to do. And I will say this, and I know I'm long-winded, you know, most of what I actually picked up when I was down there in the Beaumont, Port Arthur area actually came in 2004, 2005. An elected official was over here in Houston, and he said, hey, man, we got these expansions coming. You know, it's an opportunity. I said, yeah. I said, but you guys not ready. And the reason why I said it wasn't ready is because I was already dealing in the minority supplier-based businesses in major cities and kind of understood where the process was. And in 2005, Jefferson County didn't even have anything on this charter, in its bylaws, that any of the work that was being done with those expansions that minorities would have to either get the contracts or the job. So that's when I really first started trying to make change, and then started reaching out to nonprofits because they start saying that guys couldn't pass the drug test or that they didn't have the skill set. And then I was like, man, we need a nonprofit that can come into here and deliver some of these services. We recruited a guy, he came in and he delivered, you know, some of it, but it still wasn't a whole solution. So the nonprofits, if we start recognizing that nonprofits are functioning as corporations, and it's another way of getting access to resources to build our community and business. And we use it in the same way that they use it. You take Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, each giving each other $20 billion to their nonprofit. You know, that was strategic. We need to do some of the things. Athletes make strategic contributions to each other's nonprofits so that we all get the benefit of the tax laws, as Donald Trump say, you know, under the law. You know, but yeah. But long short, you know, it's important. I think that's one of the ways that we can definitely get our community to move forward.
Okay, I hope some folks that's listening and watching can take some notes and see what we can do to make progress in that area.
Absolutely.
Here in this area. Well, Francis, let's go to our last spiel here we have with Jerry Ball, and it's just great to have you here, Jerry. Just to hear your how you break it down to us. Okay, so Francis.
So we've got politics and finance. I see you already kind of touched on that, but if you could expound a little bit more about the tax abatements and the corporate citizens investment. And I think you were kind of chiming in on that already. So
Yeah, well, I tell you what, I didn't. That is a good segue. Here's one of the things that, I want our community, people of the Golden Triangle to know is that particular area strategically is important to our national security. So when we're talking in the scope of those refineries and the things that's going on with that, none of them can pick it up and just move. And I remember in the period of time in the early part when they were going through the abatements and things like that, and if I'm not mistaken, in that first Motiva Valero Total expansion, it was $2 billion that was given as tax abatement. Now, again, these are corporations that's making major investments, that are leading employers in the area. I get it. But then in less than 12 months, they come back and issue a bond to renovate the schools in Beaumont and then in Port Arthur. So now you got about $1 billion plus in renovating of schools that is being done also at the behest of what industry is asking. Because during the time while I have this dirt pit, I'm also an owner of a pipe, valve, and fitting company, and I'm the first minority to develop to Motiva. And Motiva leadership and some of the industrial roundtable, which I don't think most people know in that area that there's an industrial roundtable. I know the Stu people do, but some people don't. Had asked me if I would like be an ambassador and go out and help the community get prepared for the work. Because again, they was addressing it on the basis of guys won't pass the drug test, they won't go to trade schools and all of those things. But in those abatements, the one thing that was never defined in it was that the people that actually pays the taxes would get the jobs or have an opportunity at those contracts. And because of that, that became a real stickler that became very politicized between, there was a Ron Walker issue and I would say our community. And the thing that I found very disheartening about it is this, is that Ron Walker, even though he represented the West End, was the county judge that actually put in the content for minorities to participate in the Jefferson County expansion, the first and the second, and the one that people are benefiting from right now. He's the one put that language in there because it didn't exist before he was elected judge. Now, the reason why I say that is because I had intimate conversations with him telling him, like, hey, listen, it's our community that's paying a large bit of this taxes. I mean, Port Arthur is predominantly African-American. Beaumont is predominantly African-American. Those projects, the top projects are in Beaumont and Port Arthur. So when they start talking about, you take the water rate, it ain't the citizen using the water. The refineries are the ones that's using the water, but the rates that we pay in Jefferson County are the highest in the state of Texas.
Wow.
All right. So when you start looking at here, we've given $2 billion in a tax abatement to the corporations for jobs, but the jobs are going actually to people that's a part of the Southeast Texas Regional Plan. And that's 9 counties. That's not just Jefferson County. So from the Southeast Texas Regional Planning perspective, now jobs are going to Hardin, to Chambers, and outside of Jefferson County, but the taxes are being paid by the local people. So that's a disconnect right there.
Very much so.
So as one that is in those rooms, and I'll just say exactly how I'm able to communicate. It's because when these guys started making the decisions that they were going to do an expansion, one of the problems that they had is that they couldn't recruit talent in here, because when the wife come down and she goes to the school and they look at the ratings and they start looking at the area, the amenities to attract those high-skilled people wasn't attractive enough. So then it started becoming, we got to improve the schools, and then we need to get these guys up on the labor issue. Well, what it became is that the good faith aspect of it, as they say, a good faith effort, but they never really had any intention. I had a business down there, and I don't want to make it personal and divulge a lot of mine, but I'll say this. I had a $2 million line of credit at one of the local banks. And one day they called me and told me that they were canceling my line of credit. But the only reason they was canceling my line of credit is because they knew I was using the line of credit to execute that 20 million cubic yards that I had over there off of 365 that was worth $60 million. And one of the bank board people wanted that property. So they play that heavy down. Okay? All right. Now, when we start looking at, all of the issues that's related to roads, infrastructure, and things that large trucks tear up, the taxpayers pay for. I think that, the elected officials in Beaumont and Port Arthur need to sit down and come up with something that can be comprehensive, because right now I see Beaumont and Port Arthur as cities kind of with some of the same issues. But to me, again, when you look at Mid County, they kind of go in line. But when it comes to Beaumont and Port Arthur, it's kind of like, we're sitting there with the biggest tax burden, but we have the least to say in these processes and how these investments are being made. So I just say, in some of the political world that, we live in, that, it's going to take some courage, and it's going to take some resources, and I think, I think they said by 2030, there's probably going to be about 40 to 70 billion dollars spent in that area.
Wow.
So even with that, being able to take those resources, and this is kind of one of the areas that I can't lie and say I'm kind of upset with. When we were coming up, Super, you remember this? Or let me call you Tony. I don't want to call you Super. when we were coming up, we had Little League baseball, we had Little League football, and this was being funded by people like Donaldson Powell, John Hebert, Leroy Patterson, Coach Warner, Shaq, and it's others. And they work with the coaches, and these guys are in the refinery. But they've always had a safe haven for the kids to play. We could play football, then we would go play baseball. Matter of fact, baseball was so prosperous behind LL Mint, they had 2 leagues. All right?
That's right.
So when you look at, here's these men that actually have, and they made it happen. And I don't mean we had one football team. No, we had a league. Didn't have one baseball. We had a league. And in doing that, the one thing that we recognized is that there was a commitment to the kid. When I look at some of the things that's happened with the Wires, and I don't want to, get on this soapbox, but I got to admit, when I had the dirt pit, I had actually taken dirt out of the dirt pit and I had put in an infield. I had brought some workers down, had started fixing the concession stand because I wanted the kids to try to, get back to playing baseball. We had honored Coach Clayton before he passed at the pool. And guys like John Eldridge, who I can tell you is, a great guy out there in the community, we were trying to see how we could bring it back. But again, it takes more than one person. And then we have this here backbiting way that if it's me, somebody don't want to be involved because it's nothing I've done. It might just be the perception of what somebody may have said that's untrue. Yeah. All right, so we got to get out of this Harry High School nonsense. These are our kids. This is our community. And if we wanted to be what we're saying we want to be or what we see in social media, that means we got to do the work. And if we're not going to do the work, then don't complain. It's like a person that won't vote but want to complain about all the issues. So I do believe that the community needs to really pay attention to those tax abatements. Every time a project, they need to go to the city council's meetings. They need to go to the county meetings, the county commissioners meetings. They need to be involved because that's where decisions are being made. And I tell you, when I'm in those rooms, I don't see you. And that's disappointing because all my kids are out of school, but I don't have a kid here. But I have family here, and my love is here. Now, but if you coming to me with they say or that gossip and all that, I'm gonna move away from you because that don't build. That normally tears down. But anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Jerry, thank you again, man, for joining us tonight. We just had a great time listening to you, and we hit on topics that just like we hit about your career and highlights and your notable recognition, your bio, your family update. We talked about sports, the modern day sports, the modern day athletes because they're different and they're new. Mm-hmm. And I really wanted you, and I'm glad you did to really bounce off the wall on some things that parents and young kids today that's playing sports need to know, be educated, because sports now is a business, real business. It's a big business. Jerry, I used to lie and tell everybody all the time, that you took a cut and pay when you graduated and left SMU and got drafted with the Detroit Lions, because you got paid more to SMU than you got paid.
Man, we on a cash and carry basis, man.
Yeah, Jerry, I remember one time I came to visit you one weekend. You remember that weekend I came, and you picked me up from the airport, and you got on the phone. You had a big old box and a telephone. Cell phone. That was the first cell phone I ever saw in my life. Remember that? We didn't have nobody to call because nobody else had a cell phone. We'll pull up downtown.
That's
true. We'll pull up downtown Dallas, and I want to show off. I picked the phone up and act like I'm talking to somebody. There wasn't nobody on that phone. I want people to see it. Oh, they got a phone.
Nobody else did.
Yeah. That's definitely back in the day.
The book, The Good and the Bad, which I really want a copy of that. And I want everybody to know about the book, The Good and the Bad. And we
gotta let us know about the book signing.
Yeah, the book signing.
Yeah. We'll do it.
Matter of fact, we might do the live book signing for you.
That would be nice.
Yeah, that's right. Hey. I know you like that.
I'm with it.
All right. And we talked about our community and nonprofit, what we need to know and how to get involved in nonprofit organizations and how to make that money move. See, a lot of them don't know how to make that money move. But when I tell you, when they get these shaftkes off of me, I'm going to show them how to make that money, okay?
Come on.
So,
go get it.
Yeah, and also politics and finances. This is things that they, that I major in and that I love to teach it. And I love to educate those with it. And some of the problem we have in here in this area is that, and I'll be honest, I have to say it like it is. When I say they, you know who I'm talking about. Don't want us to know how to manage finance.
No doubt.
Not at all. And
no doubt.
This is why my hands have been tied now. But once I get loose, we're gonna blow it up. But anyway, Gary, I appreciate you. You've been great, man, and I'd like to invite you back again, and we're gonna do this again. And Francis, I'll let you close us out, love.
Well, again, Mr. Ball, it was a pleasure speaking with you tonight and chatting with you.
Right.
What Tony?
I want to show off a little bit, Jerry, with some of his people here, the Rainbow Push. That's Jesse Jackson and isn't that
that's Isaiah Thomas.
Isaiah Thomas, right? Okay. He's in there, right. And my man Schumer.
Yeah.
That's Jerry. I guess we was up in New York.
Yep. That's at a legislative meeting. We were dealing with some discrimination issues and trying to come up with some language. So we had a little sidebar.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. I'm glad you're all involved in that. Also, Jerry, I'm apologize to you, Jerry, because see, the first time I was just throwing some shade on you, but I want everybody to know, and I want Francis to know that you was the man.
All right.
You was the man. That was the man there. Yeah.
That's all right.
That's the man there, you know.
Hey, look here. Hey, Francis, that ain't gonna stop me from putting them hands on it. You know how that go. He done already drew blood.
That's the man right there.
Look, you got me over here crying.
Oh.
That's the man. That's the guy I knew. All right. All right. That's the man.
It's all good.
But that's all good, cuz. But I remember this one. I just have to go back to. I remember that one.
Hey man, look here. Look, on that picture, I must have got some gumbo or something.
But you plugged up the hole. You plugged up every hole that time. But
all good.
And I tell the kids all the time, football is totally different today. In my era, in football, you play football in the fall and you got a job in the off season.
Exactly.
Right. So when Jared and come in, I guess you come in 85. When that contract change in 89? Oh, in 89. So
no, you're talking about the Reggie White thing?
Yes.
That was actually in 93.
93. But the
87 was we struck in 87 and we reached the deal in 93.
Right, because in your off season you went home for a month or two and laid up on and chopped and ate pork chops and chicken all the before you went back.
No, we went to work. You see, the other thing, it's a whole different. Like my first year, I made $105,000 was my salary.
Right.
My signing bonus was $120,000. My dad at the railroad made more money.
Right. That's right.
So it wasn't that we was getting millions. I was just playing above my pay scale.
That's right. So that changed in 93 when the next contract came and the money.
That's right.
So, but then football changed.
That's when it opened up.
Right. That's when it opened up. Money. That's when the money started coming in. So, but now, as a football athlete, football player, free. I don't care what you're doing. You're going to play professional football. It's 12 months out of a year.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt. You
don't have time for no side job or all that old side chick. It's 24 hours.
Listen, but some of those kids, well, I call them kids. I'm 56. But some of those athletes in that contract, they get $1 million for working out. Hell, I'll damn go work out for $1 million too.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. So we bounced off a lot of things. So I'm glad that we had you here, Jerry. And you got the lasting words. You got it right now.
Hey, well, listen, this is what I say to the Golden Triangle, to our community. We are great people that when we were the most oppressed, it seemed like we were the most open. Now that we have an opportunity with the advent of this cell phone that really has created infrastructure, We can do business anywhere in the world. We have an obligation to actually prepare our kids, because just like with the Egyptians, when they created irrigation thousands of years ago, it was done so well that those actual scientific ways are being used and applied today. Some of the very things that we need in our community, in this country, is within people that's in our listening ear. But you got to push yourself and don't die empty. Give everything that you can and leave it on top of the earth, because the richest place on earth is the graveyard. And when our ideas, inventions, and all that isn't shared and left here on earth, is a deposit that's never taken out of. I just say we got to do what we need to do.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jerry and Francis.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ball, for joining us tonight. As I was mentioning earlier, I have gained so much knowledge, and just knowing that you played Jasper and they probably put a slight spanking on you makes it even greater. It makes it even richer. But thank you for sharing your expertise with.
Okay, now you keep pulling me. We started this way and we go end this way. I keep telling you, we never lost to Jasper in anything. And matter of fact, we beat y'all one time in middle school, 103-5 in basketball.
Oh wow!
Yeah, Jasper ain't more nothing but old boot town counter for football.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
We from where, about baby?
Look here.
Football capital of the world.
Come on, we changed them from the Bulldogs to the Kitty Cats.
That's right.
None of my people listening. Hopefully none of my people listening.
All right, my love. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for watching.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. You can catch us on YouTube, Spotify, all kind of places. So we're everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you for watching Knowledge is Power Podcast Live. Be sure. Thank you for watching Knowledge is Power Podcast Live. Be sure to like and subscribe to all Knowledge is Power social media pages.